I teach church history, and so I wanted to share a little bit more about church history today, specifically some church history from our churches as far as black history goes. And so I've been reading, I've read various books about this, but I'm reading this amazing book right now called Hard Fighting Soldiers, A History of African American Churches of Christ, written by actually a friend of mine, Dr. Edward J. Robinson. Dr. Robinson is on the Teleos board, of which I'm an editor, and he teaches at Texas College, which is a historically black college affiliated with the Churches of Christ. You might not have known that, but there's actually a college affiliated with the Churches of Christ that's a historically black college, and he is one of the professors there. It's a really, really good book that has some fantastic history in it. And so I wanted to share about a couple of more sisters today, actually a sister and a family. And so hopefully we'll have this pulled up. Yes, this is Patricia Jenkins, and this is from the date 1961. Patricia was baptized into Christ in 1959. I believe she was 14 years old at the time, and she was baptized at the Jackson Street Church of Christ in Nashville, Tennessee. That's the home church of a famous preacher in the Churches of Christ, Marshall Keeble, who is said to have baptized more people in his lifetime than any other modern preacher in the Churches of Christ. An amazing man. Also in 1959, the year that she was baptized, she actually got on a bus in Nashville, and she saw the sign that said, "Coloreds to the rear." But instead of following that sign, she sat down. And this was 4 years after Rosa Parks sat down on the bus there in Montgomery. And she was arrested because she was still a minor. She was actually taken home. Actually, I think it was the next year, she heard about sit-ins at luncheonettes in Nashville. And she went, and she was involved in one of those. She was arrested. At this time, she was a student at Tennessee State University, TSU. And yeah, we have a graduate of TSU with us today, somewhere on this side of the room right here. Oh, even more specifically, right there, waving his hand. Yeah. Unfortunately, she was disciplined and not allowed to come back to school because of her action. She had a heart for fighting injustice. She also became a part of the Freedom Riders. If you're not familiar with them, they basically got on buses and traveled on the interstates and tried to integrate buses, and many of them were arrested. She went from Nashville down to Montgomery, and when she got off the bus in Montgomery, there were some white supremacists that meted them there and caused a bit of a riot, and they were arrested. But later she testified in court against people that were part of the mob that day. Very courageous. A courageous sister of ours who stood against injustice in a time in which it was very, very difficult time in Middle Tennessee. And she was in Nashville. I was 40 miles south in Columbia. And all of this was very much not a part of my mind. But I'm grateful now to have learned of her and learned of what she did, learned of her actions, and I appreciate her courage and her willingness to stand up and fight injustice at that day and time. I'll tell you about one more family. This is from the year 1961, and this is the family of Virgil and Mary Carr, and their little daughter Ethel right there in 1961. Virgil Carr was actually an elder of this same church I just talked about in Nashville, and he was an elder in that church, the Jackson Street Church of Christ, for 40 years. And that's amazing, right? Served as an elder for 40 years in that church. In 1961, you have the picture here of Mary, and Ethel and Mary right here. And she was 6 years old at the time, Ethel was, And Mary and Virgil courageously decided that, along with a number of other black members of the community, they were going to be the first to integrate a school and to go against the desegregation that was going on in Nashville at the time. And so this is a picture of them walking up the first day of class to the Buena Vista Elementary School to go into class as the first people from the neighborhood that were black that were going to integrate this school. On that same day, there was a bomb scare, and so the whole school was dismissed. And it's the white principal that actually walked Ethel home to make sure that she made it home okay. But I appreciate the Carrs. I appreciate, again, their courage to stand up to injustice in a time in which it took a lot of courage, right? It took a lot of courage on their part to stand up to injustice. And I can imagine that both in this case and also in the case of Patricia, they had a lot of Christian conviction about what they were doing to stand up to injustice in a time of great intolerance. By the way, this incident of Ethel going in bravely into that school on the first day happened 3 years before a more famous case happened in New Orleans with Ruby Bridges. The Carrs were trendsetters at that time. And I wanted just to share this because I think for most of us, including me, we don't know the history of people that actually are part of our family, brothers and sisters in Christ of us who stood up to injustice in a time in which it took a lot of courage to make that stand. So let's go to God in prayer at this time. Well, you can clap for them. Yeah, that's amazing what they did.